friends and I made the decision to spend a chilly fall weekend away from the bustle of the city in a remote cabin retreat. While searching the internet for the ideal getaway, we came across an Airbnb and that caught our attention. It was for a cabin tucked away in a pine forest, with all the contemporary conveniences and peace of mind one could want. We had no idea that our quest for leisure would bring us face to face with the unexplainable in a terrifying way. The cool air was filled with the aroma of pine needles. As we got closer to the cabin, the landscape was lovely, with tall trees creating lengthy shadows in the last of the daylight. The lodge itself was a lonely guardian, its wood exterior fitting in perfectly with the surrounding scenery. Before leaving to return to the neighboring town, our gracious host, Sarah, gave us the keys and gave us some advice on places to go in the area. A warm glow from the roaring fireplace and the rustic appeal of the wooden furnishings welcomed us into the cottage with a pinch of excitement. On the huge windows that faced the deep woodland beyond the main living space were impressive. The promise of a tranquil getaway combined with the beauty of nature lulled us into a false sense of security. We had no idea that the cabin's enticing facade belied something far more sinister. We gathered around the fireplace as night fell, laughing and telling stories. Any discomfort was momentarily subdued by the warm atmosphere created by the crackling flames swirling shadows on the walls. But the atmosphere changed as midnight approached. A faint, indistinct murmur passed across the atmosphere. We initially wrote it off as the sound of rustling leaves or the far-off cries of nocturnal animals. However, the murmurs continued, becoming more distinct and disconcerting. It seemed as though the cabin's walls themselves were full of secrets, just waiting to be revealed beneath the veil of obscurity. With flashlights in hand, we set out to investigate the cabin's environs when our curiosity got the better of us. As we descended farther into the forest, the moon's unsettling radiance peeked through the pine branches, casting a maze of shadows that appeared to change and evolve. It was a little clearing where the trees formed a perfect circle, and the twisted branches overhead created a canopy unlike anything we had ever seen. An unremarkable, out-of-place wooden door stood in the center. The murmurs appeared to come from behind the enigmatic door, and they were becoming louder. With a creak, the door swung wide to expose a small stairway that descended into the ground. We descended into the buried depths, following the dim, flickering light that lured us down. The suffocating chill that enveloped us followed us. A mysterious energy began to fill the air, and the whispers became louder, almost like ancient stories being told. After descending the stairs, we entered a dimly lighted room with mysterious markings all around it. On a stone pedestal, an old book with incomprehensible writing within lay open. The murmurs became eerie chants as we read the enigmatic book. Their rhythm was charged with magical energy. All of a sudden, the room was silent. The room became almost completely dark as the flickering light faded. A figure that appeared before us, a phantom presence that seemed to be both ancient and ethereal, caused the air to crackle with an unnerving force. Its voice reverberated across the chamber, like an incantation as it spoke in a language beyond our comprehension. These symbols on the walls seemed to come to life as the person made gestures, emitting an unearthly brilliance. Our surroundings were constantly changing and becoming more distorted as we were imprisoned in a world that existed outside the realm of the known. An unseen force appeared to press against our very beings as the atmosphere turned ominous. We went back up the staircase in a desperate bid to get away, the whispers giving way to agonized screams. The upper door closed behind us, isolating the eerie room and its ghostly occupant. Once again, we were in the little clearing, with the door reduced to a worn wooden panel that went in well with the pine trees. We were startled by the bizarre experience and went back to the cabin with a lot of unanswered concerns in our heads. The murmurs continued, reverberating through the walls of the very location where we took cover. The cabin's once welcoming ambiance had given way to a disconcerting fusion of the natural and the paranormal. As the night drew on, sleep remained elusive. The murmurs developed into voices that could be heard, their sentences mysterious yet heavy on our minds. On the walls, shadows danced, creating bizarre shapes that gave the impression of having a life of their own. The voices stopped as an unsettling silence descended upon the cabin windows as the first rays of morning emerged. We were left to process the mysterious happenings of the evening, a plunge into an enigmatic world that defied explanation. A woodland beyond, which had once been a representation of peace, now concealed a profound and old secret that made us doubt the existence of reality itself. The whispers vanished into the distance as we reluctantly left the cabin with the sun rising, leaving us with a lasting sensation of unknowing. The pine forest, which had previously been a sanctuary of unspoiled beauty, was now hiding a mysterious room beyond comprehension. Once an innocent getaway, the Airbnb has evolved into a portal to a world beyond our comprehension. The eerie reminder that there are places in this world where the border between the supernatural and the commonplace is blurry is served by the recollections of the whispers and the mysterious cabin, which persist to this day, on with their gnarled branches, telling secrets to everyone who dares to listen. The pine trees stand like quiet sentinels. The Airbnb is a monument to the mysterious forces that lurk in the uncharted regions of our reality, even though it is now a mysterious notation in our vacation diaries. My buddies and I made the spontaneous decision to spend the weekend in a quaint lakeside town on a crisp fall evening. With little choice, we chose a comfortable Airbnb perched on the edge of the peaceful lake. We had no idea that this picture-perfect getaway would become a terrifying experience that would stay with us forever. The modern two-story Airbnb stood alone in the deep forest, the spooky sound of rustling leaves resonating around it. The picture of tranquility and solitude that its beautiful facade created was one of the ideal getaways from our busy life. Evelyn, the host, gave us a hearty welcome and a courteous grin as she gave us the keys. The cabin's inside was elegantly furnished, fusing modern style with rustic charm. As we looked about the cozy room, we were welcomed by soft furnishings, a roaring fireplace, and a fully functional kitchen. But Suite 13, which had a mysterious aura about it, was the piece de resistance. A chill went down my spine as I walked into Suite 13. Antique furniture decorated the area, and my uneasiness was reflected in an elaborate mirror. I dismissed the uneasy feeling as my imagination put it down to the room's retro decor. We gathered around the fireplace as night fell, laughing and telling stories, temporarily ignoring the strange atmosphere of Suite 13. But when midnight arrived, the atmosphere changed. Outside, a bitter wind howled, and the cottage fell silent for no apparent reason. As the fire grew dimmer, the walls began to dance with long shadows. My buddies and I decided to look into the mystery Suite 13 because our curiosity got the better of us. Hidden beneath thick drapes was a little wooden door that we discovered. I turned the handle, breathing heavily, and saw a small stairway that down to a dark basement. As we descended into the night, a stifling air surrounded us. The steps creaked with an unnerving resonance as the temperature dropped. We descended to the bottom and found an old study filled with shabby books and flickering candles. One old wooden desk with an old journal on top stood in the middle of the space. The aged logbook with yellowing pages detailed previous visitors' experiences while staying in Suite 13. We were told tales of whispering whispers, spectral apparitions, and restless nights. We were drawn further and deeper into the cabin's eerie past as we read more. The diary said that Suite 13 was home to a malignant spirit that preyed on the vulnerabilities and fears of those who dared to stay. The journal entries described the unfortunate people who had encountered the evil energy and their slow spiral into lunacy. Our resolve was torn by fear, yet our perverse curiosity compelled us to read on. The entries become more and more chaotic, with fervent requests to get away. Some visitors reported seeing shadowy figures in the middle of the night, while others mentioned hearing whispering coming from somewhere in the cabin. Abruptly, a far-off noise broke the unsettling quietness. Soft but purposeful footsteps echoed from the upstairs. When we became aware that we weren't alone, panic struck. With the diary in hand, we climbed the stairs, the stifling atmosphere growing heavier as we went. On ascending, Suite 13 appeared menacing. Once closed, the door was now slightly ajar. Despite our fear, we continued because of the diary's discoveries. We stepped into the room, gasping as our nervous faces were frozen in time by the ancient mirror. The atmosphere in Suite 13 became infused with evil energy. As shadows played across the walls, the temperature dropped sharply. The space radiated an unearthly energy, and the flickering candles created bizarre forms. The moment the door behind us slammed shut, sealing us inside Suite 13's eerie confines, our collective fear reached a breaking point. A gruff, icy voice reverberated across the space. It murmured, "You should not have come here," giving us chills. The old furniture appeared to come to life, their warped shapes creating hideous shadows on the walls. Our desperate attempts to find a way out gnawed at us. Our terrified faces were warped by an invisible force as they reflected in the old-fashioned mirror. The voice went on its eerie spiel, telling of the suffering of people who had been taken in by the evil force. We looked desperately for any way out, anything that would help us break away. But the space, with its walls closing in around us, appeared to ridicule our attempts. The wind was so cold that we could see our breath in the bitter cold. There was a loud crash as the old mirror broke into pieces. Within its shards, a hideous figure appeared, its soulless eyes fixed on us. We stood there, frozen with fear, as the creature withdrew from the shattered mirror, its evil intent evident. The thing, a dim outline, murmured our innermost anxieties and worries. It materialized hideous images that danced before our eyes, feeding off the evil within. Our sanity teetered on the brink as the room swirled with delusions. I gripped the diary tightly in a last-ditch attempt to drive the evil thing away. But the diary brought little comfort. Rather, the narrative inside its pages now detailed our spiral into insanity, with our own words contaminated by the evil spirit. So we gave in to the evil power as the chamber closed in, our screams drowned out by the stifling darkness. The creature laughed slyly through the cabin, reveling in our dread. All of a sudden, the room was silent. The shattered mirror remained motionless as the suffocating atmosphere lifted. Before, Suite 13 was a nightmare haven, but now it was eerily quiet. With a creak, the door opened, freeing us from its hold. And with our thoughts still spinning from the terrifying experience, we staggered out into the poorly lighted hallway. The once inviting cabin now loomed as a chilling reminder of the evil force that resided there. Trembling hands, we hurried into the night, leaving Suite 13's eerie calm behind. The recollection of that terrible night haunts me to this day, serving as a terrifying reminder of the thin line separating the natural world from the paranormal. Now a forgotten relic, the Airbnb serves as a warning to those who find comfort in the unknown. The lengthy haunting legacy of the past is still being cast by the evil energy of Suite 13, which is waiting eagerly for its next unsuspecting victims. It all began when I saw a fascinating Airbnb offering for an enchanting loft tucked away in the middle of the city. The attraction of an unforgettable stay got the better of me. I had no idea that this wonderful encounter would turn into a journey into the incomprehensible, pushing the limits of what is possible and what is supernatural. Situated in a historical building that evoked the grandeur of a bygone period, the loft offered a fusion of contemporary comfort and old-world elegance. The host, a woman by the name of Clara, described an ethereal encounter that took place inside an urban setting. The entryway had a feeling of worn elegance as soon as I walked in. The keys to the magical loft were given to me by the old, wise-eyed concierge. His cryptic warning, "Be careful what you wish for," lingered in the air as the elevator rose to the top floor. The loft opened up in front of me like something out of a fantasy book. Stained glass in the large, elaborate windows created vibrant patterns on the hardwood floors, framing an expansive vista of the city below. The loft's unique character was enhanced by the furniture, which was a blend of modern amenities and vintage items. I was excited and a little nervous at the same time. As I looked around the room, Clara gave clear directions, urging visitors to embrace the magic of the loft and anticipating an extraordinary experience. I had no idea that the deeper meaning in her words would become clearer and clearer as time went on. The loft appeared to come alive with a subtle energy as night fell and the city lights twinkled beyond the windows. Once static, the air now hummed with an unfathomable intensity. It seemed as though the loft's very walls concealed a mystery just waiting to be revealed. The first strange thing that happened was when I was sitting at the old writing desk, staring out at the scenery. The quill pen, seemingly untouched for decades, began to move on its own. On the parchment, words emerged in a refined handwriting that was not mine. A mysterious message made references to enchanted lands and lost stories. I read the mysterious words and felt a mixture of awe and fear. The loft appeared to be a channel for powers that were incomprehensible. My curiosity overcame me, and I investigated the loft's past, learning of stories from former visitors of mysterious happenings that left them feeling both eerie and enthralled. A ghostly apparition was said to have danced under the moon, scattering sparkling stardust in her wake. Another told of a night when there was an unearthly force surging through the walls, almost like breathing. These tales, woven throughout the history of the Loft, depicted a magic that stood beyond the confines of space and time. I started to notice little changes as I became fully engrossed in the eerie atmosphere of the Loft. Shadows danced on their own, creating elaborate patterns on the walls. The old clock, an artifact from a bygone period, chimed erratically, like though time was passing in a world apart from reality. And one night I was lying in bed, and there was a gentle tune in the air. The source was elusive, a menacing melody that appeared to come straight from the loft's construction. The enchantment seemed to have taken on a musical shape, sweeping over the space like a symphony of enchantment. On the loft responded more the more I accepted its enchantment. Items momentarily hovered before returning to their original positions. Soft, musical whispers filled the room, telling stories of hopes long since gone and lovers lost. I was no longer able to distinguish between the real and the paranormal, which left me feeling both scared and in awe all the time. One evening, the city below became a tapestry of sparkling lights as I peered out of the arched windows. The loft appeared to separate from its city environs, existing in an illogical fantasy world. A glimpse of a reality that existed outside of the usual was provided by this strange event. The charm of the loft, nevertheless, had a double-edged effect. The eerie quality of the experiences increased in tandem with the supernatural happenings. The whispers became murmurs with a melancholy undertone to their rhythm. Once fun, shadows now seemed to be acting with ulterior motives, as seen by their erratic and unexpected movements. One sleepless night, I woke up to an unearthly mist shrouding the loft. Ethereal figures that appeared to be dancing on the edge of perception emerged from the haze. Even though they were captivating, there was a sadness and desire in their presence. A spectral form, clad in a dazzling dress, reached out to embrace me. Its eyes spoke silently, like pools of unending depth. A sense of urgency filled the air, as though the figure was looking for forgiveness or comfort from a history that was still shrouded in mystery. I was swept up in a phantom waltz, spinning into the haze with the spectral group. Once a source of curiosity, the loft's charm felt now like a web entangling me in the grief of many who had walked its enchanted path before me. The mist cleared as daylight came, leaving me alone in the quiet loft. Even though it was fleeting, the magic persisted in the atmosphere, like a melancholic tune. The loft had been a magical place earlier, but now it was burdened with untold stories, and I struggled to accept that the enchantment had a cost. The spell grew stronger every day, drawing me farther into its ethereal grip. The walls encircled me, their tapestries seeming to tell stories of lost lands. I couldn't grasp the cryptic language used by the shadows to communicate secrets that made me shudder. With the enchantment of the loft growing more capricious, I turned to Clara, the mysterious host who had made my voyage into the unknown possible, for answers. My attempts to get in touch with her were unsuccessful. Messages were not returned, and the building's concierge asserted that they were unaware of any host going by the name of Clara. Trapped in a reality that had escaped my control, I made the decision to write down what I had experienced in the loft. Early mornings became late evenings as I documented the enigmatic happenings that took place inside its boundaries. The writing desk, which had previously served as a creative outlet, now witnessed a decline into the paranormal. I wondered with every passing entry if the magic was an attempt at communication, or if it was a reflection of the loft's own unsaid woes. The spectral figure, the eerie music, and the lingering murmurs all turned into pieces of a jigsaw that was difficult to solve. As I explored the loft's mysteries further, I came to the unsettling conclusion that the enchantment extended beyond the room itself. It had soaked into me, blending my spirit with the ghostly energies that throbbed in the attic. The lines separating the observer from the observed became hazy, and I was enmeshed in a mutually beneficial dance with the paranormal. A voice rang out through the loft one fateful night as it pulsated with an unusual energy. It was Clara's voice, soft and yet full of melancholy tones. She begged, her voice a low murmur that echoed through the loft, break the enchantment. I followed the history of the loft, drawn by an unexplainable urge, in an attempt to find hints that would help me solve the riddle. The ancient furnishings, the stained glass windows, and the antique clock all held a piece of the enchantment's history. The loft seemed to be yearning to be understood, to be freed from the unseen constraints that constrained it. While searching for the answers, I discovered a secret compartment inside the writing desk. There was a worn journal inside that described Clara's personal discovery of the loft's magic. She talked of a love lost to time, of unmet expectations, and of a desire that was greater than death. There was a burst of electricity in the loft when I read Clara's remarks. A spectral figure formed out of shadows, resembling Clara's journal entry in form. The loft seemed to be lamenting its unfulfilled destiny that consigned it to the domain of the paranormal. As the air fizzed with intense emotion, I suddenly realized that the loft was pleading with me to unravel the unsolved mysteries that lurked beneath its walls in order to end the enchantment. The ghostly figure was Clara's wish come true, silently pleading for an end to the ordeal. I set off on a mission to fulfill the loft's hidden promises, led by an unearthly force. In order to piece together a story that spanned decades, I went looking for the descendants of those who had previously lived in the building. The magical songs, the dancing lights, and the murmurs that reverberated throughout the attic started to correspond with the entwined fates of the people who had made their mark on the area. An exhalation of vitality flooded the air as the threads of the loft's enchantment woven into a tapestry of interwoven lives. The ethereal apparition, who had previously heralded grief, was now filled with peace. The eerie tunes turned into a victorious symphony, and the murmur blended into a chorus of hope. The loft's mysterious voyage came to an end when the ancient clock struck midnight in a dramatic moment. The lines separating the tangible from the supernatural vanished, and I was standing in an area that was outside the actual walls of the structure. The loft emitted an ethereal brilliance, lifted from the burden of unsaid grief. The antique furniture seemed to have a fresh lease on life, and the stained glass windows glistened with a rainbow of hues. Once a cause for concern, the enchantment had transformed into a symbol of the transformational potential that comes from acknowledging and accepting the unsaid stories that tie us to the past. I stood in the now quiet loft as dawn broke, the echoes of the magic fading into the early morning air. Once a ship for unrealized dreams, the structure served as a symbol of the close relationship between the corporeal and the paranormal. Clara's silent request had been granted, and the loft embraced a newfound tranquility. After this incredible event, I couldn't help but be amazed by the mysterious trip that took place inside the magical loft. The ethereal drama that had taken place in the antique structure remained hidden from the city below, which continued with its daily activities. The concierge nodded knowingly as I left the loft behind, realizing what a dramatic shift that had occurred. Even after the spell was broken, it had a lasting impression on me. The borders between the ordinary and the extraordinary, once distinct, had blurred, and I carried with me the weight of untold stories that transcended the confines of time and space. The Enchanted Loft remained a singular chapter in my journey through the unexplained, even if it is now a beacon of understanding and closure. The city went about its regular business, unaware of the otherworldly drama taking place all around it. The enchantment's memories, however, persisted, bearing witness to the complex dance between the material and the magical that awaits those who have the courage to encounter the unknown. I made the decision to reserve a remote cabin on Airbnb because I needed a vacation from the bustle of the city. The offering offered seclusion, with the property tucked away in a thick forest and far from any neighbors. Large, antique mirrors graced the interior of the picture-perfect cabin with a rustic facade. I had no idea that one specific mirror would lead me on a terrifying adventure, since it concealed a secret. When I arrived, the host, a kind woman named Emily, welcomed me. After giving me the keys and giving me some advice on where to go in the area, she drove off, leaving me by myself in the peaceful surroundings. The tall trees that encircled the cabin gave off an air of tranquility that was a pleasant diversion from the bustle of the city. I snuggled into the lovely cottage as the evening sun began to set. The wooden walls glistened with shadows created by the crackling fireplace. Despite their relatively innocent appearance, the antique mirrors gave the living room a hint of retro appeal. I had no idea that one specific mirror was hiding anything sinister. As night fell, I couldn't help but be drawn in by the old-fashioned mirrors. Their shiny surfaces held a fascinating depth in the soft lighting, as though they were windows into another world. At that moment, my eyes locked on one particular mirror, an elegant oval mirror with a golden frame. I felt something strange come over me as I gazed into its mirrored surface. It seemed like the mirror was silently beckoning me to look past the material world and into the unknown. I felt a chill down my spine, but my curiosity won out. I had no idea that this choice would send me into a terrifying unknown night. I kept staring into the mirror and felt as though the space around me was disappearing. The mirror became a dark and foreboding world, a warped representation of the cabin that looked similar to one I knew, but had an unsettling aura. My reflection was there, but it appeared distant, as though it were in a different realm. A mood in the mirrored cabin was stifling and unsettling. Shadows twisted in strange ways as they moved on their own. Words that appeared to resound from the depths of the unknown were whispered, scarcely audible, from the reflecting surface. It appeared as though the mirror held a doorway to a world where the rules of reality were broken. Suddenly, there was a chill in the air, and I sensed someone watching me from behind. I turned away from the mirror, startled to see the cabin as usual. The old mirrors, the elaborate circular one among them, mirrored back the everyday world once more. I dismissed the unsettling experience, blaming it on my hyperactive imagination stoked by the forest's seclusion. I kept having the impression that the mirrors revealed something that went beyond the physical realm as the night went on. I had a strange need to return to the elaborate oval mirror. The frame was golden and beckoned, as though it held a secret that needed to be revealed. The environment around me faded into shadows as I gazed into the reflecting surface again. The mirrored cottage reappeared, but this time the warped reality appeared more genuine, more sinister. Grotesque forms emerged from the dancing shadows, which took on a life of their own and lurked in the mirrored space's corners. The muttering became louder, the syllables creating a mnemonic chant that reverberated across the world of mirrors. There was an intensity in the crackling air that made my spine tingle. I sensed an unseen force observing from the shadows, its purpose hidden behind the enigmatic murmured incantation. The mirrored cabin appeared to flex and sag, its proportions changing in an unsettling manner. I sensed a tug, as though the mirror was trying to entice me into its dark interior. The urge grew stronger, and I went against my better judgment and touched the mirrored surface. My fingers touched the chilly glass. The world of mirrors swallowed me. I was a participant in a bizarre nightmare, no longer an observer. Before, the shadows were only warped mirrors. Today, they were actual, living things that slithered and writhed with evil intent. I was encircled by muttered incantations, their rhythm growing into a chorus of ghostly voices. Something evil was scouring my mind, reaching deep into my subconscious with a voracious appetite. It appeared as though the mirror was attempting to tear apart my mental structure, revealing my weaknesses and anxieties. I tried to flee the mirrored realm out of fear, but the shadows trapped me. I was encircled by their dark tendrils, which drew me farther into the warped world. The mirrored cabin changed, becoming a maze of twisting passageways that led deeper and deeper into the depths of darkness. And with menacing laughter, the murmuring voices, which had become a cacophonous chorus, echoed. I was lost and frantic to get out of the terrifying illusion as I staggered along the dimly lit hallways. On the walls felt as though they were closing in on me, their surfaces vibrating with an energy from another planet that fueled my anxiety. I suddenly found myself in a large room in the center of the reflected world. At the center stood the elaborate oval mirror, its golden frame pulsating with an awful brightness. The hushed chants reached an overwhelming climax as the shadows came together to form an unfathomable figure. The thing that appeared in front of me appeared to be an archaic kind of evil. Its shape was amorphous, fluctuating between blackness and a vague, smoky material. The murmuring voices combined into a savage growl that sent a shiver down the spine and filled the room. The thing, a dark outline with no features, reached out a shapeless arm in my direction. It touched my forehead and I felt a searing ache, like something was probing me to find the core of who I was. Memories flashed before me, exposing me to moments of dread, grief, and delight that the monster could devour. I experienced a burst of determination as the agony progressed. I fought against the invading force, mustering the will to escape the thing's hold. The reflected realm trembled, as though my disobedience had upset the fragile equilibrium that kept it intact. The mirrored universe vanished in a dazzling flash of light, and I was back in the cozy confines of the cabin. The elaborate oval mirror showed the mundane reality once more, its evil light gone. A lingering feeling of fear lingered to the air as the shadows vanished. I staggered away from the mirror, exhausted and rattled from the terrifying experience, my thoughts still racing. There was anxiety in the air, even though it was silent now. Once endearing features of the cabin, the ancient mirrors now appeared to be portals to a realm best kept unaltered. I packed up my things and left the cabin as morning broke. The woodland felt different in the early morning light, like a realm with secrets hidden beneath the surface of its unspoiled beauty. As I shut the cabin door behind me, the elaborate oval mirror seemed to watch me with a silent malevolence, despite its silence. What had started out as a peaceful getaway on Airbnb had become a nightmare where the lines between the otherworldly and the real world were blurred. My mind was permanently altered by the dancing shadows in the mirrors, the hushed incantations, and the evil that prowled throughout the mirrored world. I had the unshakable impression that the mirror had a persistent presence that extended beyond the actual boundaries of its reflecting surface as I drove away from the remote cabin. I was left with a nagging concern after the distinction between the remarkable and the ordinary became less clear. What additional secrets do the world's mirrors hide in their silent depths?